Hey, I'm Kyle. Welcome to this episode of the Newfoundland Hobbyist. Hey, what's up guys? It's about 9 a.m. Myself and my good friend Cody are here heading back in the backcountry. This is something that's one of my big time hobbies. Cody is one of my good partners for it, and that is heading back in the woods on foot. Not nearly as much with the quads or skidoos or anything like that. I like the quietness of just walking back in. We're both wearing snowshoes here today, and we really like cooking and eating in the woods as well. It's just a lot of fun. There's a good sport to it, and when you're walking in the quietness like that, I find you get to appreciate the great outdoors a lot more than if you were tearing along on a four-wheeler. You get to see wildlife that you wouldn't see if you were on a machine. You get to hear all sorts of cool sounds and hear the rivers rushing nearby. To me, it's just a lot more pleasant experience if I'm just in walking in the quietness like this. It's a gorgeous morning here this morning. Couldn't ask for better weather. No wind, nice bright sun, real cold, everything is coated in ice. It's just lovely, and we're going to have a great time heading in to cook up some food. Neither one of us have really eaten yet, so got to get going. So you probably noticed already the terrain where you're watching us walk here is a little bit different, and unless you've seen the exact same thing happen before, you might not recognize what's going on. What's happening is that this whole vast area you see here burned back in the 1980s, just a few decades ago. So that's why you're seeing a lot of sticks like this here, gray. This is old burnt wood, just remnants. And you probably see a lot of stumps and stuff around. This burnt wood like this makes great wood for burning because there's still a lot left to it. So guys come along with their snowmobiles and cut down all the old burnt trees and junk them up and take them home. But it makes a fantastic resource for out bushcrafting like this out in the woods, because you got all that nice material to work with. It's down on ground level and it stays really dry. So you notice today that's what we'll use for our fire. Is just a fantastic resource. The only thing about being in terrain like this is that there's usually very little birch, so it's kind of hard to get tinder material. You probably see around here a lot of like this we call goldie bush. That's the common name for it in Newfoundland. In burnt land you get that everywhere, so the ground is just absolutely covered in it. Makes it a little bit tangly walking in the fall or in the summer season, but in the winter like this, it's just beautiful. You can skim right over, you're not picking through trees or anything like that. Any of the conifers you see around here, because it burned just a few decades ago, this is all new growth trees, so nice young healthy trees, and it's just beautiful terrain for walking in. Well, we've been walking for a while, and we finally came upon a little spot of land here. We figured it'd be nice. We got a little orientation of rocks, big rocks sitting around, so we figured it'd be nice. Keep any wind if it kicks up off the fire, and just make a nice little cove, some rocks to sit on. Should be great. We'll start picking up some materials now. We've got a few tools with us for that, and we'll get a nice pretty fire going. Nice warm fire, that's always a real good time. I figured now would be a fantastic time to step out of the video, come out of the woods for a few minutes, back to the workshop and talk about axes. I've had a huge love for axes for a long time. Used axes since I was a boy, and as I've been older, I've sort of gotten into the fun part of collecting axes and then restoring axes, hanging axes, and I've developed this obsession for old vintage axe heads. Here, these three on the table are a few of my favorite. We have a vintage Holtzbrook here. This is a 2 1/4 pound made in Sweden. This is a beautiful, I found this old head at a place here in St. John's, Newfoundland. Restored it, and it is just beautiful. I hung a new handle on it. It's heavily soaked with boiled linseed oil. It's got a beautiful hanging up here. Grain orientation is right, and it's just a joy. It's a fair size axe, so it's a little bit big. Here's another one I absolutely love. This is a Wetterlings, an antique, 2 1/4 pound. This is just beautiful. It's hung on a 21-inch piece of hickory, perfectly straight grain, big palms throughout the bottom. I just love it. Both of these are fantastic axes, but they're not my go-to ones for backpacking. And the one that is the one you see on the video there with me in the woods. This is one of my favorite axes. Even though it's not super special, I just love it so much. What I'd like to talk about to you now is how I sharpen my axes. So we talked about the importance of sharpening in the very first episode of this show. And with axes, it's extremely important. A dull axe is an unsafe axe. You start getting a lot of glancing and stuff because it just won't bite the material. A good sharp edge will grab almost at any angle. If that edge can find a piece of material, it's going to bite that wood. So that's one of the great things about having a real sharp axe. Now for tools, of course, you'll never be able to replace just a standard mill bastard file like we have here. This is a great file made by Simmons. Beautiful file, nice and big. Cuts really well when new, and that's great for establishing a nice keen edge, for getting that edge shape there and taking out dents and chips. But an edge just off a file is not good enough for me. It's a good starting point, but we're going to go much farther past that. So the method I'm going to show right now is something I learned as the rooster method. It was, as far as I know, it was developed by a man named Craig Roost, who lives in the United States. And he came up with this idea of using these sanding pads with this foam like you see on the back here, various grits of sandpaper, and by drawing that across your edge, you can get just such a fantastic edge. And the beauty of it is because that's a foam, it does a mild job of convexing the edge. So to use a stone on an axe edge, most axe edges have a convexing or a curvature to that bevel, like this one does here. So by having a sanding pad like this, it just naturally wants to follow that pattern, and you can just get a fantastic edge. So we're going to go through that now with a few grits that I have here. So I've got a few pieces of paper here cut down to size. Generally 3 grits will be plenty. It all depends on how bad a condition your axe edge is in. This axe edge here is still pretty fine. It's not shaving sharp, so I don't need to take a file to it because that's really coarse. That's unnecessary. That'll remove more steel than I need to. So I've got 220 grit here, 400 grit, and then 2000 grit, which is extremely fine. These are automotive sandpapers or metal sandpapers, so they work great for this. This is 3M paper, high quality, but it really lasts a long time, so it's definitely worth getting some high quality paper. So I'll just mount a piece here in the sanding pad, You want it so it fits nice and tight, so I've got it cut down to a good fit here. We're going to take our sanding pad and we're just going to start running along the edge just like this here. Make sure you're covering the full length of the edge. And one of the things you need to watch for is you don't want to steepen the angle, because the softness of this foam is already going to compress a little bit, ever so slightly, and follow the angle. So you want to make sure you're not angled too far forward. Otherwise, you keep getting a thicker and thicker bevel. Because we're using stropping strokes here, it's important to go along your edge like this, almost a circular motion. Because we're doing stropping strokes, you have a tendency to pull a big burr out off your edge, and you don't want that. So by going along with your edge, it just helps remove that burr. Just helps work the burr away while you're working. So those are the scratches you see there from that 220 grit. It's nice, and it's really sharp, really keen edge. It just grabs the skin like crazy. So now let's start working with that 400 grit. Just with this many strokes, I can already see that scratch pattern changing on the axe. Very keen there now. Getting a little touch of a burr. So what I'll do is just drag my edge across a piece of wood and just let it cut ever so slightly into the wood, and that'll pull off any burr. So this is the finish that you can expect with a 400 grit paper. Just a beautiful finish. You notice those scratches are much finer there now. So maybe with just a minute, maybe a minute and a half on that 2000 grit paper, that is the finish we're left with. A mirror polish that you could comb your hair in for sure. Just beautiful. I love the look of that, and it is razor sharp, super sharp, and look how nice that looks. So if you want here, we can do a quick edge test. Let's just see if it's adequately sharp, and it'll shave my arm. So I think that'll do. Be careful with these edges, even though they won't glance the same. If you have an accident with an axe this sharp, it's going to be bad. I found that one out the wrong way. Guys, apply this method yourself. Give it a try. I hope you like it. Let's head back to the woods.
Glory to his name. There to my heart was the blood applied. Glory to his name. You better not be recording me. You missed that one.
What's that?
I got hooked up, I went flying. Oh, it's drier.
So we've been processing wood here for a few minutes. We got a little bit of base down of wood. It's a little bit tough, and we're a little bit unsure of what's going to happen, because everything, as you saw in a few earlier clips, everything is buried in ice from some of the recent weather here. So almost everything we look for has a sheet of ice at least on one side of it. If it's leaning, the full top side is covered nice. Anything standing is saturated. So we had a really rainy few days here, and that's all you can do, work with what we got. Managed to come up with some good sticks. Cody got some real nice stuff here. He's breaking up some stuff now, and we're about to get the fire going. I'll show you what I use to light my fires. So in my leather fire pouch here, I'll show you, here's something I use that's really cheap and works fantastically, and that is dryer lint. Dryer lint has a lot of like cotton fibers. It's really fibrous. Has a lot of course, like hair and different things in it like that. A lot of good stuff in it that tends to burn really well. And the key part about it is it takes a spark. And I light my fires never with a match or a lighter, but with a ferro rod. Okay? Here's one of my own knives here. This is actually my first custom forged knife I ever did. It's a beautiful little neck knife, and I wear it all the time. It's got oak handles, full tank construction. Really love this knife. Convex grind, hand forged by myself. I really enjoy it, but nice sharp spine, and again my ferro rod here. So dryer lint like this takes a great spark from a ferro rod. Why I like using a ferro rod is that it's never affected by moisture or temperature or anything like that. If I carry matches or a lighter in here, if there's a bit of wind on or my gear gets wet, it doesn't hold up to it. This doesn't matter if you get this down in the water or whatever. Give it a little wipe off just to clean off the real excess water, and it's fine. So I'm going to throw a few sparks in this. Shouldn't take too long to light it up. If I can get it nice hot. There we go. It's lit already. I'm just going to nurse it along here because of that wet material. And you notice it burns quite well. It just kind of simmers along there. Hopefully we can nurse this into a good fire. Got no birch or nothing here today. There's no birch anywhere in the area. So that's just part of the deal. Okay, we're starting to drive enough heat for it to carry itself. Hey! Hey! You too. Oh. So we finally got some heat built up in that fire there. It's taken a little while and it's pretty slow burning just because of the moisture content. And there's also, you see a lot of smoke and vapor coming out of it. That's part of the reason. Follow me around a little bit actually. But we're about to cook now. We got enough heat built up. And here we have a beautiful piece of cast iron. I collect cast iron myself. I love cast iron gear. My Dutch oven, whole array of different sizes of cast iron pans. But it's just nothing better for cooking over the fire than cast iron. You've got to decide really if you want to lug in all that weight. I mean, there's several pounds there you're throwing in your pack. It really makes a big difference, but once in a while it's definitely worth it. I'm going to put it on here now, start heating it up, and get some food going. We're getting close now. Bacon's done. Time to go in with the next part of the dish. Drained off a little bit of that fat, and we're going in with a can of Puritan. The bacon is nice and crispy, so having this in here now should make it just nice. Put a bit of softness back in the bacon. Oh, this is going to be good. We got some fresh homemade bread, courtesy of Cody's wife. Thank you, Stacy. This is going to be great. A lot of heat from that fire there now too. Crazy amount of heat. Man, that is so good. That bacon, that bit of salt added to it, and the sweetness of the beans. Ugh. Threw that bread in the pan with the butter, and just a bit of leftover mess, we say, in the pan from cooking the food. All warmed up now, it's super soft. That's really good bread.
Got my mind changed. I'm gonna eat my bread. I'm gonna eat the top layer of butter up.
Butter, yeah, butter. That's not a bad idea. Oh, it is tasty like that.
That, oh, hitting me.
Well, thanks for staying to the end of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. I know we've sure enjoyed ourselves out here today. We've been talking, it's just a perfect day weather-wise. Still not a draft to win here now. Cody's getting smoked out a bit. We've got a second kettle full of tea boiling over there waiting to be drank. We're still drinking our first ones here yet. Forgot my mug today, so I'm drinking out of my water bottle. Mint tea we're drinking here. Brought by Cody, and it is delicious. I made fun of him for it in a previous video, but man, is it tasty. If any of you watching are looking for more content just like this, head over to youtube.com and search up my name, Colin Ulsworthy. You'll find my channel, and you'll find tons of videos just like this one, plenty of them with Cody in as well. We have a lot of fun. This is one of our hobbies we love to do, and it's something we could do together. It's great that you can have friends come together like that. Also, if you want to check out my Facebook page, head over there and search Kyle Nolsworthy -Wiederfan. So that's my my Facebook page, and you'll find lots of content there. Ask me any questions you want. I'm there checking it all the time. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week to the Newfoundland Hobbyist. Oh.
Yeah, it's good stuff, Carl, boy. Good stuff.